Hello, in this video I'm going to explain the basic principles of the execute module, and here I'm focusing on what happens if the planner approves the data, and here we want to have an understanding of the functionality and the principles that apply when you approve Shopfloor data. So I won't focus on the process of checking and releasing, so mainly this is foreseen to understand the basic principles of what's happening in the background when you trigger a reschedule based on the new Shopfloor progress data. Okay, so first let's have a look at what we call the lines. So you are very familiar with the red line. So the red line in Just Planet is the planning start line. So by default, you know, Just Planet is forward scheduling based. And if you do an automatic forward scheduling, the scheduling engine needs a certain time or date where the calculation starts. And this is the planning start line, which is visualized as the red line. So the red vertical line is the earliest possible starting date for all the jobs that are in Just Planet. That means that all jobs that are automatically scheduled can never be positioned left from the red line. Okay. And then next we have the green line, and the green line has no impact in Just Planet. It is just meant to inform you about what time is it now. So it is the time now line, the green line, and once again is just shown as an information, and it has no impact on scheduling at all. And with the execute module now there is a third line, which is the yellow line, and this line always appears if the planner starts the updating process, so the approval of the Shopfloor data. And this yellow line is representing the most recent update from the Shopfloor that was set by any of the operators, and that was then finally released by the chief operator. So it is always the most recent update from the Shopfloor that you get. Okay, and just one final information concerning these lines, that the planning start line can never be right from the time now line. So that ensures that you do not get any start or end dates in the future. So that makes no sense, and here Just Planet directly takes care that your operators don't set any inconsistency in that sense. So you're just able to set Shopfloor progress data that is now or in the past, but never in the future. Okay, to sum up here, the red planning start line is where the calculation for forward scheduling started, the green line just for information, and the yellow line shows the most recent update from the Shopfloor within the process of approving the data. Okay, so then here you know this process already. So when you execute the schedule, then all your operators set the actual Shopfloor data, such as the finishing date and also which resources and resource groups are used to do so. If you're small, then also the planner can do that. And here, if you and the operators set these Shopfloor progress, then we have got a rule implemented that simplifies everything. So when you set a task to finished, and this finished task has some predecessors that are not set to finished yet, then this is done by Just Planet automatically. So we are not forced to set like every predecessor to finish 2 if the most recent data set implies this. So that means if you have a finished data, then every predecessor will be set to finished also if not yet done. Then, of course, you know that all Shopfloor data is latched in an update storage, and it is the planner's task to finally approve, and with the approve, then the red planning start line will be pushed forward. So every approval triggers a pushing forward, or we call that pulse, a pulsing forward of the red line to the yellow line. So that means that the information that is given by the shop floor then moves your planning start line forward accordingly. Okay, so then also a very important information. Once the planner is in an approval session and it has triggered an update of the schedule, then he can always undo and redo this until or when he is still in the execute session. But once he switches to another tab, then this cannot be undone or redone again. Here we have got other possibilities to reset the planning start line later, but not by the undo button. Okay, so let's have a look then of the consequences of the status for the tasks. So a finished task, of course, once he is approved, can no longer be moved or changed. And very important, it does not utilize any of your scheduling resources, as of course a finished task lies in the past of the planning board. That means that finished tasks after you pulse, after you improve the data, will be frozen left from the red line. So that means that the red line jumps over the finished tasks. The started task can no longer be moved, of course, also. And the started task utilizes resources now, and now means not right now in a sense of time, it means now in a sense of the most recent feedback. And then, consequently, of course, a started task can just be made longer and shorter. But the start date is fixed. That means the start date is frozen left from the red line, and the started task is marked in green in the planning board, and the end of the task is prolonged to the new position of the red line. Okay, and the planned tasks, those tasks that you know already, so that you have been, or we have been focusing on in the chapters before, of course they are utilizing the resources as you know that in the future, and of course they can be moved by automatic scheduling or by any scheduling action that the planner does. And the earliest possible start date for all planned tasks is the red line, of course. And of course, planned tasks are having informations such as the sequence numbers and routings, of course, as you know that already. So let's have a look at an example. What does that really mean following these basic principles? So first of all, let's focus with the first example on the red line. I just want to explain to you the impact of the red line. So here we have a very easy example. We have got machine 1 and machine 2, and here we have got 2 jobs. And job number 1 has 2 tasks, machine 1 and machine 2, 2 and 1 hour. And pretty similar, in job 2 we have got task 1 and task 2. It is like a different routing. First machine 2 1 hour, and then machine 1 3 hours. So now if we schedule that, then this is just like a little repetition of what you learned about automatic forward scheduling. So like job number 1 has highest priority, gets the machine 1 first, so then the routing is considered and it is scheduled after the first task is finished. So then the job with the next priority is scheduled. It means machine 2 can make use of the idle time in here, but needs to wait until the task 1 of job 1 is finished on machine 1. So this is just, as you learned, automatic scheduling in the forward scheduling sense, in the as soon as possible sense. And here everything easy. But all tasks are planned, and now let's assume we would just move forward the red planning start line. So just assume the red line would be moved. What then would happen is that, of course, all tasks will be pushed forward accordingly also, as the red planning start line always is the earliest possible starting date. And if you move that earliest possible starting date, then all tasks need to be moved also. So this was just a little example to get really an idea of the red planning start line. So now let's have the next example and have a first look what happens if we get some shop floor feedback. So we have the same situation, and now the planning start line should be the same with the time now. And now time goes by, of course. So, and let's assume we have got like a couple of hours is now gone forward, and that means that within this time span between the planning start and the time now, of course, something happens in your shop floor. So normally within that time, normally task 1 of job 1 should have been finished, task 1 of job 2, task 2 of job 1 should have been finished, job 2 task 1 should have been finished, and job 2 task 2 should be started and be under execution currently. So now you get the information from the operator that task 1 is finished, but you don't get any other information. And let's assume the chief operator says, okay, it's released, but as I said, we don't want to focus on this release process here. We just want to understand what happens if I bring in now the information that job 1, task 1 is finished. Okay, so that means that job 1, task 1 is finished. Here we visualize that with the black color of that respective task. And now the planner approves that data. And with the approval, now the yellow line appears. And the yellow line is the date of the most recent shop floor progress. And here it is the finish date that was communicated or set by the shop floor for the end of that particular task. So the yellow line will be positioned at the end of the date that was set for the end of the task. So, and this is what we call the pulse 2 line. So, and with the pulse 2 line, you will move forward the red planning start line accordingly. So the red line after approval will be where the yellow line is now. And having this in mind, of course, we get kind of an issue, because normally, due to your initial plan, the task 1 of job 2 should have been finished already. But there is no information given as such. So that means if I approve this situation now, and let's assume this is the reality, then the task 1 of job 1 needs to be pushed forward accordingly, because it is not started yet and it needs to be rescheduled. So, and if I am now pulling that forward, then potentially it would start directly at the red planning start line. But of course, I cannot leave it in here, because I need to consider the routing of job number 2. And as the routing says, the task 2 is the predecessor, the successor of task 1. And I need to see that the job number 1 has a higher priority, I first need to move forward that task 1 of job 2, and I need to move forward the task 2 of job 2 according to the routing. So, and this is what happens if you approve this example. So we just quickly step back. So what we do get is this information in here. So we get the information that task 1 is finished, and with that we get the new yellow line. And if I approve this scenario, what then will happen is the task 1 of job 1 will be pushed forward, and as it has lower priority than job 1, it will be scheduled after the task 2 of job 1, and the routing of job number 2 needs to be considered accordingly, and therefore what we get is like this scenario, what you can see here after approval of the shop floor data. And this is very easy. First example shows that if execution is not fully following what you have scheduled, then of course the rescheduling ends in a total different schedule and in a total new different work list for your operators. As you can see now, both tasks of this job number 2 now are started or foreseen to start at different times than before. Okay, let's have the next example. So here now, let's assume you get the information from the shop floor that job 1 task 1 is finished and job 2 task 1 is started. So in sense of coloring, it means like this. Pretty similar situation to before, but now additionally we got the information that not only task 1 of job 1 is finished, but task 1 of job 1 is started. So here we have got additional information. Obviously we could start job 2 also. So what does that mean now? The pulse 2 line is totally the same. And if we now approve that, what happens then with task 1 of job 2? This is the question in here. So what would happen if we now move forward the red line? Normally the task should have been finished during the time, but there is missing information concerning the finishing date, and that means or implies that task 1 of job 2 is still under execution. So it is still running because nobody set this to finished. And for that reason, this task will be automatically prolonged to the new planning start line, or here before approval to the yellow line. So obviously task 1, the execution of task 1 job 2 takes longer than estimated, and if I am now approving that, then exactly this happens. Task 1 of job 2 will be automatically extended. So here, this is the second example that shows what happens if a task is started, should have been finished in the meantime, but there is no information that this is finished now or already, and this implies that it's still ongoing, and this still ongoing task will be then automatically prolonged to the new planning start line position. Okay, let's have a last example, example 4. And this example is explaining the rule that if you get an information that a task is finished which has predecessing tasks that are not set to finished yet, then these tasks will be set to finished automatically. So here it says job 1 task 2 is finished already. So that means you get the information that this task here is colored in black, but normally you should also have the information that the predecessing task 1 is finished already, but as this information is missing, it implies it must be finished due to the routing. And if we now approve that, of course the pulse 2 line will be end of task 2. And what will happen is, again, normally task 1 of job 2 should also be started. I don't want to focus on this, but the very important thing is here that even though there is no explicit information about the finishing of task 1, with the finishing of this task 2 here, you directly finish also the predecessing task. And when you start the approval, or if the planner is then approving this situation, then it happens what we estimate and learned already, because then the task 1 of job 2 needs to be pushed forward and the successing task accordingly. So this is then the updated schedule with the Shopfloor data, including the automatic job chain role, as we call that. Okay, so this was an overview over the basic principle to give you an overall good understanding of the automatism that takes place when the planner approves Shopfloor progress data. I thank you for watching, and I see you in the next video.